risk versus control, Rich Dad said, "The more a person seeks security, the more that person gives up control over their life." Today I see two worlds evolving. One world is the world I call the responsible society. It is the group that believes in being responsible for their lives and the ultimate outcome of their lives. There is another world that I call the victim society, which is the group that believes that someone else, a company, or the government is responsible for their lives. In any group, family, or company, there are usually both types of societies. Both see the world from their own context or reality, and both seem to think they are right. I have found that one of the dividing factors between both societies is their core view on the ideas of risk versus control. Victims tend to want to give control over their lives to someone else in order to avoid taking risks. Then they get angry when they feel someone abuses the control they granted the abuser in the first place. In other words, victims are often victims of themselves. Mutual funds are also slow words. 506 Regulation D are fast words. The reason I say that mutual funds are slow is because the big profits or appreciation in any paper asset is made at the formation of the company, prior to the company going public. When rich investors begin investing in the share of a company, they are often investing according to the terms and conditions spelled out by the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC's Regulation 506D, and other such regulations. In other words, the rich invest in shares of a company when the company is still a private company. The public invests in shares of a company after it becomes a public company. The differences can be enormous. For example, if you had invested $25,000 in Intel prior to it going public, that $25,000 might be worth more than $40 million today, depending on the ups and downs of the stock market. This does not mean mutual funds are not good investments. For most people, mutual funds are great investments. But they are better investments if you know what you are doing, know what the risks are, and know the big picture of the whole game of investing in stocks and mutual funds, public and private. Knowing the words, vocabulary, and the jargon of the investments of the rich improves your chances of becoming richer quicker. The leverage of integrity. From 1985 to 1989, Kim and I did not have any passive or portfolio income. We were working diligently at building a business so that we could have more leveraged earned income. All the extra money we earned went back into building the business. As the years crept on, I could hear my rich dad saying, "The moment you make passive income and portfolio income a part of your life will change. Those words will become flesh." Both my dads were sticklers for knowing the definition of words. They also said, "You're only as good as your word. People who do not keep their word are not much good." One of the reasons so few people retire young and retire rich is that they are not true to their word. They use words that to them are not real. If you want to change your financial future, one of the most important and inexpensive steps you can take is to know the definitions of the words you use seriously. Some of the more basic, fundamental, and important words to understand are your personal current ratio, quick ratio, liquidity ratio, debt to earnings ratio, as well as the difference between assets and liabilities, and earned, portfolio, and passive income. All of these words are defined and explored in my previous books and audio programs, particularly Rich Dad's Guide to Investing and Rich Kid, Smart Kid. Harnessing the power of words. Why are words important? Simply because the concepts behind them can be useful to you and your life. For instance, understanding basic ratios, such as debt to equity or liquidity ratios, can help you in gaining your financial freedom. Let me explain. A useful ratio is your debt to equity ratio. For example, if you have long and short-term debt of, let's say, $100,000 and you have $20,000 in equity, then your debt to equity ratio would be 5 because you need to divide 100,000 by 20,000. The question is, what does this mean? Well, in reality, it means very little. Yet if next month your ratio is 10, that might tell you that you could be mismanaging your life. A debt to equity ratio of 10 could mean that either your debt has gone up to $200,000 or your equity has dropped to $10,000. In either case, those numbers have more meaning because they are real numbers that relate to your life. As Rich Dad said, mind your own business. And knowing these simple ratios are excellent tools for teaching yourself how to mind as well as manage your own business, the business of your life. One of the ratios Rich Dad had me watch and monitor was what he called the wealth ratio. His wealth ratio was passive income plus portfolio income to total expenses. The goal of calculating your wealth ratio was to have your passive and portfolio income equal or exceed your total expenses. This would mean you could quit your job, earned income source, and still maintain your lifestyle. Once your passive and portfolio income exceed your expenses, the ratio will be 1 or higher, and you would be out of the rat race. Kim and I knew the definitions of the words passive and portfolio income, and we knew we wanted them in our lives. But for 5 years, we did not have these two types of income. Suddenly, after the 1987 stock market crash and the 7-year recession began, we knew that the window of opportunity had arrived. It was our time to make the words real. It was time to have a wealth ratio that was more than 0. We bought our first property in 1989, and by 1994, we had a little over $10,000 in passive income a month, and our total expenses were less than $3,000 a month. So, 10,000 divided by 3,000, that gave us a wealth ratio of 3.3. Today our wealth ratio is over 12, even though our expenses have gone up significantly. That is the power of making the words a part of your life. If you are serious about retiring young and retiring rich, you may want to make Rich Dad's wealth ratio a part of your life. Add power to your life. There are 2 points I want to make from this section on words, action, and integrity. One point is that a few simple definitions and simple numbers can add a lot of power to a person's life. Just as any good shopper would want to know the price per pound, each of us should be aware of our debt-to-equity ratios, your personal wealth ratio, and other simple mathematical indicators. The second point is that there is more to success than simply knowing the definitions of words and throwing around jargon in the attempt to sound intelligent. Too many people today use words they don't really understand. Many financial services salespeople use financial words that they don't really understand in an attempt to sound more intelligent than their clients. The main point is, if you want to retire young and retire rich, it is important for you to constantly improve your financial vocabulary. But to fully improve your vocabulary, it is also important to know more than just the definition of the word. In my opinion, it is important to make that word a part of your life and your reality. For example, when I say the word passive income, I say it with passion, because it is an important part of my life. Passive income means as much to me as pay raise means to many employees. I've spent years learning how to convert earned income into passive income. The more time I spend actually converting earned income to passive income, the more real-life experience I gain. While both dads did not stress the importance of the same words, they both stressed the importance of the word integrity. Both dads agreed that one of the definitions of integrity was the correlation between a person's words and a person's actions. Both dads said, listen to what a person says, but more importantly, watch what a person does. My real dad constantly reminded his children about the importance of keeping one's word. He would say, ultimately, we are our words. If your words are no good, then so are you. That is why he also said, never make promises you don't plan to keep. One of the more simple, yet powerful parts of my plan to have a life of great wealth was to make sure I had the integrity to be true to my words and respect the power of words by matching my word to my actions. Rich Dad said, if you will keep your small agreements, you will keep your big agreements. A person who cannot keep his or her small agreements can never have bigger dreams come true. I bring this idea in now because there are so many people who have big plans, but their big plans never come true. The reason is, too many people have big plans but fail to keep their small agreements. As Rich Dad said, people who do not keep their small agreements are people who cannot be trusted. If you cannot be trusted with small agreements, people will not help you make your big dreams come true. If you cannot keep your word, then people fail to trust you and have little confidence in you and your words. So I pass on the words of wisdom from both my dads, and those words are, be sure your words and your actions are one. In summary, if you want to retire young and retire rich, take the time to constantly upgrade your financial vocabulary and have the integrity to walk the talk rather than just talk. Always remember that words are tools for the brain, and that there are fast words and slow words to wealth. The leverage of fairy tales. Rich Dad loved fairy tales, especially the story of the tortoise and the hare and the 3 little pigs. He absorbed their lessons, and those lessons guided his life. I remember him saying, many times in life you will meet people who are smarter, faster, richer, more powerful, and more gifted than you. Just because they have a head start on you does not mean you cannot win the race. If you will keep faith in yourself, do the things that most people do not want to do, and keep making progress on a daily basis, the race of life will be yours. He would often intertwine the story of the tortoise and the hare with the story of the 3 little pigs. When I was around 12 years old, Rich Dad said, "Poor people build financial houses made of straw. The middle class build financial houses made of sticks, and rich people build houses of brick." He would then add, "To be a successful tortoise, it's okay to be slow, but be sure you are slowly building a house of bricks." In 1968, while at home for Christmas leave from the academy I attended in New York, Rich Dad and his son invited me to their new home, which was the penthouse of his new hotel. "Remember me telling you those stories?" Rich Dad said, as we gazed from his balcony over the white sand beach and crystal blue ocean. "The stories of the tortoise and the hare and the three little pigs?" "I do," I said, still amazed at the beauty of their new home, high on top of their new hotel. "I remember them well." "Well, here is the house of bricks," he said with a grin. In 1968, while standing on the balcony of his penthouse, Rich Dad reminded me of another fairy tale. "Do you know the story of the ugly duckling?" he asked. I nodded my head as I leaned over the balcony. "Well, most of my life I saw myself as the ugly duckling. When I dropped out of school at age 13, I saw the world as an outsider, someone who did not fit, someone who had been left behind. While working in my parents' store, high school boys would come in and push me around or damage the store, knocking cans off the shelves or throwing oranges out on the road and daring me to do something about it." "Did you ever fight back?" I asked. "Twice, but I got pretty badly beaten," said Rich Dad. "You used the story of the ugly duckling to keep you going, didn't you?" "I used the story of the ugly duckling, the story of the three little pigs, the story of David and Goliath, the story of the tortoise and the hare to keep me going. Instead of letting those bullies get me down, I used their actions to inspire me to do better. Today, I have a house of bricks, and we are in the penthouse in that house of bricks." "You became the swan?" I said with a smile. "Well, I wouldn't go that far," Rich Dad chuckled. "The point is that we can all grow, evolve, and make dramatic changes in our lives if we want to. The other point is that fairy tales can come true. Ugly ducks can become beautiful swans, and slow tortoises can win the race." From slow plan to fast plan.